Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for attending our Audit Committee meeting, held on today, 21st of February 2023. I'm sitting in for our chairman, Mike Pulver, as he's away at the time, and so I'm acting as chairman rather than vice chairman tonight. And I've asked Councillor Boutrop if she will stand in as the vice chairman for this meeting. So could I have your approvals, please? If you'd like to vote on your...
If I smile nicely.
If you smile nicely. Oh, do I have to do that as well?
Presumably I don't have to vote for myself.
No, you don't, so I think we're okay.
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You can just ask us to put our hands up.
I suppose I could do, couldn't I? Yes.
So it would be about 3 times quicker than this.
You're quite right. Thank you very much. Anyway, I believe that we've now approved Councillor Boutrop, so thank you, Anne, for stepping in as Vice Chair.
My pleasure.
Thank you. On to item 1, to receive apologies for absence. I have 2. I have one from, obviously, from the Chairman, Councillor Mike Pulver, and also from Matthew Cornish, who's suffering with a migraine. So he's sent his apologies in. To receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any a matter on the agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on that issue? No, I see nothing. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And now to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 15th of November 2022. Firstly, I'll take the members to the vote on the public minutes. So please use your touch screens to vote on the minutes for the last meeting. Thank you. Okay, we have 4 in favour and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. And, right. Thank you for that. Vote's closed, obviously. And I've just read out the results. Now, secondly, we need to approve the minutes of the other section of the meeting that was held on that last date. And if anybody has anything to say, we will have to go into closed session to discuss. But if you're happy to approve those minutes, then please do now by voting on on your screens. Thank you. Great. So up on the voting, we've got 4 plus and 1 abstention. So thank you very much, everybody, for voting. Right, so that's all done that one. Right, now I think we're finished with that item. Number 4, to consider items the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. There's just one small item which relates to an additional date for the Audit Committee on Wednesday the 19th of April. I'll just pass this over to Louise to discuss.
Thank you, Chairman. So members will be aware that the original agenda for this meeting was longer, and it included signing off some of the previous year's accounts. Unfortunately, those are not quite yet ready, and so EY have asked us to pencil in a date in April, which they believe they can meet. My intention at this stage, because we are dependent on an external partner, is to ask everybody to hold that date, and we would hope to have more certainty from them in March that they will be available to attend with those papers. So rather than make it a formal meeting as yet, we've canvassed you for your availability for that date.
Thank you, Louise. Does anybody have any questions on that? Oh, yes. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, just the obvious question that obviously falls within PERDA, and I just wanted to confirm that there were no issues arising from that.
I don't think there would be, but I'll check with Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. No, I can't imagine any of the agenda items for that committee having an impact, PERDA having an impact on those items.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Okay. So I think that, thank you for that, Louise. We can wait and see what happens with EY. Moving on to item number 5. The capital strategy for 2023 and 4 through to 2026 and 27. And I'll pass over now to Louise to introduce this and tell you, I'm sure you've all read your papers. She can give you a brief overview of this. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you. So as you'll be aware, the annual capital strategy and programme is delegated to this committee to consider in advance of it going to council next week. So you're asked to debate and make any comment or recommendation and before it goes as part of the budget, which will be published after this meeting. What we've done within the programme is to be very explicit that it's a dynamic programme, so it's profiled, but it's also live and it will be continually added to. And as we know with these kind of programmes, they are very much alive and they're not always neatly within an annual financial cycle, so we've tried to set that out here. We've also set out very clearly the governance structure of how the programme is managed. So I hope this paper's useful and we'll take any questions.
Absolutely. So, far away. Does anybody have any questions on this, on the capital strategy? Yes, Councillor Gibson.
You do it. I got back out the last year's to have a look at it, and I'm surprised if we look on, well, it would be the equivalent figure, what I believe, because there's a bit of a mismatch between the two. What I believe on the bottom of page 15 on the 23-24 figure of 5.735 million, that's jumped up from, if my interpretation is correct, from just over 2 million. And I just wonder if the officer could give just a little bit of background about the size of that jump, and just really how that really sort of how that gets into the programme, that sort of level.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, can you just point me to your references in this paper?
In this paper, it's page 15.
Yeah.
And it's the figure of 5,735, which is 5,735 million.
At the bottom.
The proposed expenditure for next year, 23-4, the grand total of our programme.
Are you there?
No, I'm sorry. Draw me. Table 2, yeah.
Capital programme, 22, 23, 26, 27.
Yes, 5735.
5,735 on the bottom of that. And that is, I observe, an increase from 2 million when in the budgeting plan agreed last year. And it just seems a very significant increase, and I'd like some detail as to what has prompted that increase.
So I think the overarching principle is that it's a dynamic programme. So at that point in time, in the same way that if you look at table 1 here, we're setting out the new additions to the programme that were brought to the budget. So that would be table 1 on the page before, where what we're talking about there is approximately 1.4 million of projects. They will highly likely be added to over the course of the year. So that's where a point in time is quite difficult with a capital programme. In terms of showing the variation from the number that you've pointed to here versus that, they will have all been through the governance process and been added into the programme through member decision making. Outside of me, I can send you a list, but with capital programmes that you'll see on the Cabinet Forward Plan, things are constantly coming forward.
Yes, please do.
Thanks. It just right. I mean, yes. I mean, I agree. I had spotted that was 1.4, but there is still 2 million in there, which doubles it. Is that slippage? Is that brought forward? I mean, basically, what I'm saying is, what is the point of having a profile that runs over 5 years if it's going to change so massively?
Let's carry on.
Yeah, so I think with capital programmes, they are very much alive. So you'll have a little bit of reprofiling, you'll have a lot of new schemes, and it will continuously update. It's quite difficult to do a fixed point in time with capital programmes. If you'd specifically like a breakdown of the 2 million, I'm really happy to let you know which schemes they are.
My problem was just you go out 5 years, but it looks like, you know, what is the benefit of that 5-year analysis was what I was really getting at. If it vanishes so quickly, that was the issue which I was getting to, because I couldn't see amongst all these figures what had grown. I mean, I looked at the big figures. I looked at the fibre, for example, and it seemed to me that had followed a very good, well-defined project costed path and was arriving at the same thing. So this has obviously crept in, and so my guess is it's cost growth across everything, because you've said that you haven't told me that nothing's been brought forward. But I mean, we'll leave it there, shall we? Right. I've made the point that it's a profile.
May I come back
but
on
it down
one?
that. Okay.
So the purpose of having a programme is we're required by the code to have a programme. So we have to do it. And I think I would expect it to change, but we have to, whoever it was did known knowns and known unknowns. You're doing what you know, and we've really tried in this paperwork to present that it's a managed process and we expect it to grow and change.
I think it's one of those things where you need a crystal ball. I do keep one at home, just in case. You never know. Anyway, thank you very much, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. I fully appreciate the last point in terms of the capital programme will change and evolve as we get new funding and as new opportunities come along. But perhaps I'm more interested in changes between the original draft budget and this capital programme, and thinking particularly about the current cost environment and what effect that is having on the deliverability of the programme, and just a specific point as well around the Swanmead and in terms of the earmarked monies for temporary accommodation, affordable housing, which seem to have reduced by £500,000 on the original draft. When you combine the three factors, I just wondered if there's any changes in the programme there.
Happy to take that one.
So on your first point, Table 1 sets out a series of changes, and we would always, if there's significant change, it would come back through the decision-making process and be added into the programme. We are hugely alert to the cost environment, and as I say, that's set out there. We can give you some specifics if you had particular programmes. On Swanmead, I don't know if, Rachel, you're able to explain the combining of those, or?
Thank you, Rachel.
Yes. Swanmead was combined with the broader temporary accommodation programme, just to provide for that whole programme. But it hasn't been reduced. Obviously, there will be spend in year, and so it's profile forward. And it was approved. It's just the combined budgets, but they haven't changed.
And just to come back on, in terms of, you don't see there's a risk from, in terms of the current programme then, from the current inflationary environment, you think, as far as you can, you've factored that into these costs?
So we keep everything under really live review, and each project is addressed in a different way. So it's whether the scope has to change, whether the timing has to change, whether we've actually had a couple of projects which have underspent. So it really is on a case by case approach. And we have small tolerances within which officers can manage that, but anything substantial would go back through the member approval process.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Rachel, did you want to come back, or are you done?
No, it's fine, I was just going to say.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on this one? Okay, thank you. In which case, I'd like you to take you to the recommendations on page 7. Oh, yes. The recommendation, the committee is asked to consider the draft strategy, provide feedback it feels appropriate, and recommend the strategy for approval by council at the next appropriate meeting. So if you would care to vote on this on your keypads, please. Thank you very much. Great, we have a voting result, so thank you for voting, and we have unanimous decision on yes. We do. So that's very good. Thank you very much. Next page. The next report we have is on item number 6, the Treasury Management Strategy Statement and the Annual Investment Strategy for 2023-24 to 2025-26. And again, I'll pass on to Louise. She's going to need a very large drink after all this lot. And let us introduce this particular strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So again, the Treasury Management Strategy is delegated to this committee to recommend as part of the budget process, which will go to Council next week. We're recommending some slight changes to the previous year's approach, and they're really to spread investment and achieve improved returns, but staying within quite a low risk profile. And what we're really trying to do is factor a likely reduction in interest rates, and we want to make sure that our investments are positioned well over the next 12 months so that we make the absolute maximum of the tail of those investments. Now, it's your decision in respect of how much risk your appetite you have, so I'd invite you all to have a discussion and debate if you would like to take a slightly more risky approach. Might get higher returns, obviously the risk equals might get lower returns. So it's set out with the summary at paragraph 2, talks about the indicators that we're recommending that you change just above the recommendations. And as this is a highly technical area, Joseph from Ada Worthing is here for questions that are beyond me. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you very much, Louise. So, the floor is open to you, so who would like to speak? Yes, Councillor Adams, what would you like to say?
I just wondered if you could explain, so if you're in personal banking, you have an upper limit where you're guaranteed that you get your money back if the bank, folded. Is it the same with council finances? Like you've got on here 4 million, 5 million, what's the upper limit?
That's Joseph. Would you mind answering that one? Thank you very much.
That's fine, yes. For building societies, it is the same as individuals. So that limits, that's 85,000. Other local authorities, we would pretty much be guaranteed to get it all back. We've had discussion before about Thurrock and made some amendments to the strategy because of their situation. The worst case scenario the timing of the return of those investments might be delayed, but the government backs all local authorities, so that wouldn't be an issue.
Content with that, Councillor Adams? Any other further questions? Perhaps Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that this is an appropriate point to ask this question. It's more to do with the way that we use the cash that we hold, which I guess that there's risk associated with our choice of that, and therefore the amount that we expose ourselves to borrowing, external borrowing. And my question is that what sort of level, in percentage terms, should we think is appropriate? And I say that in the context, and maybe I should declare an interest as a county councillor, that the county council is raising its internal borrowing limit from 10% to 22% over the 25-year period. And I would just like an opinion as to whether or not this council feels that it could do the same thing, because clearly we do have quite a lot of cash.
Thank you. Louise, are you happy to take that on?
Probably easier.
Okay, thank you, Joseph.
Well, all the capital programme is funded, so it's not really an issue of internal borrowing. As far as I understand it, the only internal borrowing is the 5 million remaining on the Orchard shopping centre. So I don't think there's really any need to change the borrowing limits. Have I understood your question?
I think that the level of internal borrowing there is something slightly different, but I mean, I agree that, you know, so there's a very limited amount here, and it's really just what our perception is for the future. The problem being is that if we need to both have the cash and pay back the loan, we would then have the risk at what we can actually borrow that money at. But I think we'll pass at that.
Well, I'll let Louis, did you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, we're a collection authority, and that means we hold on to lots of cash which we can use in really good ways. So that's a real benefit to us. There is absolutely no planned borrowing that we're thinking about at the moment, and we would come back here if we were even thinking about that. So,
As I understand it, our lending limit is 34 now. 30 plus 4.
yes.
Yes. Yeah, that is the lending limit that we've set ourselves. This goes back 2 or 3 years, I think now. Yeah. Okay. So if I can move on, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I think the point from the previous discussion is it's an opportunity lost potentially, because we could be borrowing internally without having to go externally, because we are borrowing, we are not using those internal fund, that internal cash flow like the county council is. So it gives us an opportunity if a particular issue came across that we could actually borrow more money without necessarily having to finance it externally. I just wondered, in terms of the sort of the interest rates we're getting, and with interest rates peaking, whether we should be moving more into longer term lending, i.e. over a year, and whether that would benefit the authority in terms of, even if it's 18 months rather than a year, whether there would be a benefit at this point in the interest rate cycle to be slightly more adventurous.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. I'll pass this over to Louise.
So I'll just take the first point. So the Orchards is quite unique, and it is our only borrowing. We're generally an investing authority, and if we borrowed, that would offset against our returns. If I go to Joseph on the spread of risk, because really what we're trying to do is have a balanced portfolio in terms of duration, return and risk. And Joseph can talk to that.
Thank you, Joseph.
Sorry. Yeah. I think this coming financial year will be an opportunity to look at some longer borrowing as the curve drops. If we can secure some rates that'll extend into the period when rates start to return to normal, then that could be a good opportunity. But we will examine that as we approach the new year.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hicks. I've got one little question. It's just a bit of clarification. Within this section, on page 29, we're reducing the lending term to other local authorities from 5 years to 1 year, but increasing the limit from 3 to 5 mil, subject to due diligence, obviously. But we've got that on page 41 within the local authorities little tiny spreadsheet under Appendix C. I'm trying to see what that one was. But on the following page, under the specified investments, it's still showing maximum maturity 5 years. What's the difference between the two? Or are they one and the same and that we haven't yet this is only a proposal at the moment?
There is a difference.
Yes.
The specified investments are those that we can do our day-to-day dealing with. We would discuss those with Rachel and put out a deal, quite quickly. The non-specified ones are those which we would go through a more extensive due diligence process and probably engage further treasury management advice from external advisors.
Yeah, so my point is, why are these two rates not, these two criteria not the same? Because, if we're, regardless of whether it's specified or non-specified, the non-specified is saying 5 years with a hire of 10 million or 50% of funds. So I can't equate the two. Am I being thick here?
Yeah, we chose not to review the unspecified investments, but it's like I say, they're two different
Okay.
two different parts of the treasury management strategy.
Okay. So that one stays in there under non-specified at the maximum maturity of 5 years.
Yeah, we're not making any unspecified investments at the moment, haven't done for some time.
No, I know we generally stick with the approved investment situation. Okay, thank you. In which case, any further questions from anybody? And thank you for your input. In which case, I'll take you to the recommendations, which are on page 17, I believe. And the Audit Committee is recommended to propose the items on small 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm not going to read them all out. If you're happy to vote on those, please do so now. Thank you very much. All the results are in and that has been approved unanimously. Thank you. So where are we up to now? I think we're moving into That's very kind of you for coming. Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate that. So we'll move now on to the internal audit progress report, which is from pages 49 to 58. And again, Louise is going to introduce this initially and will be aided and abetted by Juan. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so this is just a short update because we had an update fairly recently, just to say everything remains on track, everything that needed to be done in time is being done. And we have one particular audit that we've decided to pop in here, which is the Disabled Facilities Grant, because it's had substantial assurance with one low priority recommendation. And so Mazars have put it in here because they thought it was highly unlikely we would be unhappy with that, but we have only just formally signed off the report, which is why you don't have a summary of it here, and we can bring that in the future if you'd like to see it.
Thank you,
And
Louise.
anything
Do you want to add something, Juan?
No, I think that really summarizes our position, which I agree, we are on track and we delivered what we said we would deliver by this date. So we're happy to take any clarification questions if needed.
Thank you very much. Okay, team, down to you. Any questions on our internal progress report? Thank you, Councillor Hicks.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like confirmation that we will actually receive all the audit reports once they are signed off by management. So I would expect as default for us as the audit committee to receive them. And in terms of the actions outstanding from the previous audit report, and will we get a report back, say, if any are behind schedule, for example? What will be the process of monitoring the actions against the original audit report?
Would you like to take that one? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor, for the questions. We have agreed with Louise that moving forward for those audits we have finalised in the 2022-23 financial year, we have agreed there is going to be an approach and a process to share these reports with the committee. So we have only finalised one today. So we will work on providing this report to the audit committee, and any finalised reports from the 22-23 activity, this will be shared with the committee. And then on follow-ups, we can also include that information in the progress reports. So if there were any recommendations previously raised that are past their agreed implementation date, we can include them as an annex or as an appendix from the progress report, but I'm happy to say we don't have any.
That's good. Thank you very much. Did you want to come back on anything there, Louise? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Any observations? Okay, thank you. Councillor Gibson, you're writing away there. Don't want you to miss out on asking a question, that was all. You're welcome. In which case, I can take you to the recommendation on page 49, and the committee is asked to receive this report. So if you'd kindly like to vote, that would be great. And the results, thank you very much for voting. The results are up on the screen behind you, and we have unanimous approval of the report. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on, the audits, item number 8 is the internal audit strategy and proposed operational plan for the coming year 23-24. Louise will introduce, thank you, and again we'll be aided and abetted by Juan.
Yes, so Councillors, I thought it'd be really good if we could get this signed off well before the start of the next financial year, so that we can spread the audits out across the year and give ourselves a really good chance of planning well and getting all of the audits done in a timely fashion. One can obviously take detailed questions, but the general approach is that Mazars will share with us what they call their audit universe, which sounds incredibly grand, but it gives us a sense of all the things we might want to look at and helps us to move away from perhaps doing the predictable audits. And so what we've looked at is a multi-year programme in terms of what we've looked, when we last looked at things and what might be useful for us to look at. And then as a management team, we discuss, feedback to WAN, they give their professional opinion that we're doing a good spread across the organisation and then bring it to you for your approval. So WAN can add anything if you've got particular questions on certain topics. I can give you a bit of a steer on some of the ones that we've looked at. But for example, I've picked a couple of HR ones because we're changing payroll provider and it felt like a really good opportunity to check that's gone well. We've got a big election, so it felt like a really good idea at the back end of the year to have a look at that. So happy for either of us to take questions.
Was there anything you wanted to add to that then, Will?
I can add that in comparison or comparing this proposed plan for next year against the current plan, we actually have 10 more days, so we're doing more things. And just to reassure the committee that we are comfortable with the extent of coverage and the resources proposed for the upcoming plan. It will enable us to provide the required annual opinion for 23-24. And yes, to support what Louise just said, we really want to start delivering audits early in the upcoming financial year, so we're aiming to start delivering some work from May onward.
That sounds very good, thank you. Right, open to questions again and any thoughts you might have, and I'll pass on to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Bootstrap. You've got a question.
Thank you. Yes, Chairman. I have a quick question about on page 66 with regards to the grants and the scope. Does that include a check on procedures regarding a sort of a monitoring that the grant money that is applied for is applied to the projects, to the specific items that are stated within the grants applications?
Thank you.
Yes, it absolutely can do, and what we'll do in a scenario like that is we'll look at our procedures and then do some testing and sampling.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hicks.
So just what liaison there is with the external auditors on whether they have given any input or suggestions in terms of what might be in the programme.
Yeah, perhaps one, yes, one.
Thank you, Councillor. I think the best approach now is, well, I would like to clarify that the plan is dynamic and we do have some contingency days. I think the best approach will be to get the account signed off, probably, and then we can liaise with them. And if there are any concerns, we can include them in next year's work or plan. So even though we have a plan for next year, that doesn't mean we cannot react and add anything into it. But I think it would be better to get the account signed off first.
Thank you. You happy with that? Any further questions? No? Okay. In which case, I can take you to the recommendation on page 59. The committee is asked to comment on the detailed internal audit plan for 2023-24 prior to implementation. Would you care to vote on this one, please? Voted now. I think, am I waiting for another vote? Oh, it's me, is it? I thought I'd pressed the button. I do apologise. Thank you. Oh, yes, it's gone now. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Brilliant. So, that's brought us up to date on our agenda here. And I shall now go to item number 9, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, notice of which has been given, of which there isn't any. Thank you. And therefore, I think I can conclude this meeting at 7:37, according to this little thing here. So thank you all very much indeed. Can you just, sorry? Oh yes, we have to stay on screen for a little while.